Adrienne Holt had everything money could buy: a business empire, a massive mansion, and a name that commanded respect. But every night, alone at his long, polished dining table, his world was silent. Not just quiet completely, utterly silent. A sudden illness in his 30s had stolen his hearing, trapping him behind an invisible wall. Life went on around him, full of laughter and conversation, but he was sealed off, isolated even from the simple sound of another person breathing nearby. His staff were respectful, but distant. His fortune was his shield, but it had also become his prison. Silence was his only companion, and his greatest enemy. Adrienne tried to fill the void with fine art and gourmet food. He gave generously to charities, hoping to buy a piece of the warmth he'd lost. But the mansion, once filled with music and laughter, had become a cold museum of memories he could no longer access. His staff moved like ghosts, their interactions reduced to polite notes and gestures. His heart was tired in a way no amount of wealth could fix. If you believe that kindness can transform hearts, or that miracles can hide in the most ordinary moments, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to World of Kindness. And let us know in the comments where in the world are you watching from. Among his staff was Rosa Melendez, a quiet housekeeper with a gentle spirit. Life hadn't been easy for her, but she faced every challenge with quiet strength. She had recently given birth to a little boy, Mateo, whose sparkling eyes and happy gurgles filled her world with light. With no one to watch him during her long evening shifts, Rosa would keep him in the staff area, praying he wouldn't cause any trouble. One chilly autumn evening, Adrienne sat alone in his grand dining room. The crystal chandelier cast a golden glow, but the room felt heavy, suffocating. The loneliness was more painful than usual. Meanwhile, in the staff quarters, little Mateo had managed to escape his playpen, drawn by the warm light down the hallway. He toddled curiously towards the dining room. Before Rosa could notice, he had wandered right in. Adrienne looked up and froze. There, standing near the end of the long table, was a tiny boy, staring at him with wide-eyed wonder. For the first time in years, something stirred inside Adrienne, a flicker of surprise, mixed with a feeling he couldn't quite name. Mateo, fascinated by the glittering silverware, broke into a huge, open-mouthed grin. A moment later, Rosa rushed in, horrified. She began apologizing frantically, trying to scoop her son up, but Mateo squirmed, reaching his little arms out towards Adrienne. He let out a joyful squeal. Adrienne couldn't hear the sound, but he felt it, a vibration in the air, a ripple of life he hadn't sensed in a decade. A faint, unfamiliar smile touched his lips. He gestured for Rosa to stay, silently reassuring her that it was all right. Hesitantly, she placed Mateo back on the floor. The little boy immediately crawled closer, his attention captured by the colorful food on the plate. Adrienne just watched him, feeling a warmth spread through his chest, uncoiling a knot of loneliness he didn't even know was there. Then, Mateo did something incredible. He reached out his small hand and placed it gently on Adrienne's chest, looking up into his eyes with surprising seriousness. That simple, innocent touch sent a shockwave through Adrienne. It had been so long since anyone had touched him with pure affection, without pity or formality. The baby babbled happily, and though the sounds were lost to Adrienne, he felt them. He felt the vibrations through his chest, like faint echoes of life returning to a forgotten place. The next evening, Adrienne left a note for Rosa, asking if Mateo could visit him again. Shocked, but relieved, Rosa agreed. It soon became their daily ritual. While Adrienne ate his formal, silent dinner, Mateo would sit at the other end of the table in his high chair, with his own little lunchbox. He'd clap his hands, press his cheek against Adrienne's arm, and giggle at nothing in particular. The staff started whispering amongst themselves. They saw the change in their employer. The hardness in his eyes was softening. His posture was less rigid. The cold, silent mansion was slowly being filled with the light of a child's presence. Days turned into weeks. Adrienne started noticing things. He had long since tuned out: the vibration of footsteps on the wooden floors, the soft rustle of fabric as someone walked by, even the faint tremor of his own breathing. Doctors had told him his hearing was gone forever. But something inside him was waking up. He wasn't hearing sound in the way he once had, but he was feeling life again. He was feeling connected. One evening, while Rosa was cleaning nearby, Mateo climbed onto Adrienne's lap. He pressed his little ear against Adrienne's chest, then let out a huge giggle, delighted by the steady thrum of his heartbeat. Adrienne felt the vibration of that giggle deep within his soul. It was so pure, so full of joy, so intensely alive. To his own surprise, tears began to stream down his face. Rosa froze, worried she had overstepped, but Adrienne just smiled and shook his head gently, signaling to her that these were good tears. As time went on, Adrienne's house was no longer silent. It was filled with a different kind of sound, the feeling of laughter, the warmth of connection that didn't need volume. He and Matteo communicated through touch and expressions, a language all their own. Rosa had worried that Adrienne was just using her son to ease his loneliness, but he did something she never expected. He offered her a beautiful cottage on his property, with a higher salary, ensuring that she and Matteo would always have a safe and comfortable home. Rosa wept with gratitude. She had never imagined such kindness from a man she thought was unreachable. Adrienne Holt, the man who was once trapped in a prison of silence, now found himself at the head of a family one created not by blood, but by a single, innocent moment. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the beauty hidden in everyday kindness, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to World of Kindness. And before you go, tell us, would you allow a small act of innocence to change your life? Watching Matteo sleep peacefully in Rosa's arms one evening, Adrienne finally understood the miracle he'd been given. It wasn't about regaining his hearing. It was about rediscovering what it felt like to be connected, to feel life thrumming around him. And from that day on, Adrienne never dined alone again, because for the first time in a very long time, his heart wasn't alone anymore.